Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dan on Sports. By the time you watch this video, the New York Mets' 11-game losing streak just might be history. But it doesn't matter. The Mets are not a good team. The manager, Carlos Mendoza, is on the hot seat, but it's really not his fault. It wouldn't matter if Carlos Mendoza was the manager, Carlos Beltran, or Carlos Sanchez, who danced on the honeymooners. The Mets are not a good team. What are they now? 7-15, the second worst record in baseball behind the Kansas City Royals as of this recording. They're already 8 games behind the Atlanta Braves. Now, that doesn't mean the Mets can't go on a winning streak, but that's the key. When you get off to this bad of a start, you could go on a 5 or 6 or 7 game winning streak, and guess what? You're still not at the 500 mark. And I don't see this Mets team turning it around like they did 2 years ago when they dropped 11 games under 500 in June, was it? And then turned it around. I just don't see it. And even if Juan Soto comes back healthy, like his old self, I don't see it. And I predicted with Juan Soto, a healthy Juan Soto, that the Mets would not make the playoffs this year, just as I predicted the Red Sox would not make the playoffs this year. It's there. Uh, I've put it out in the newsletter on video that the Mets would not make the playoffs. They were not one of my picks to be a playoff team, and neither were the Red Sox. We'll save the Red Sox for another day. This is about the Mets right now. This is on the president of baseball operations, David Stearns. The team he put together just is not capable. He's trying to be the wonder boy. Well, good luck with that. Some of the prospects have not turned out as you would expect. Benj has gotten off to a slow start, not surprised there, but Beatty and some of the others are just not working. And so the Mets are in trouble. And what makes it even more difficult, if you're a Mets fan particularly, is they have one of the highest payrolls in all of baseball. What are they, second behind the Dodgers? They got a payroll well north of $300 million. So this is not a good look for the Mets. Now, maybe they get hot. I always thought when I looked at the Mets this year and I looked at their lineup after Soto, and remember they lost Alonso. Tell me right now, wouldn't you rather have Pete Alonso in your lineup right now, who started to hit and is helping the Orioles win? Wouldn't you rather have Alonso? Their first baseman, the Mets' first baseman, is on the IL. And Marcus Semien has not turned out that well at second base. There is a reason the Texas Rangers said, okay, we'll trade you Semien. But their lineup does not strike fear in the hearts of opposition. And Bo Bichette, listen, I broadcast games when Bo was playing for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Bo Bichette is playing out of position. I thought the Mets definitely overpaid for him. And I don't blame Bichette for taking that $42 million a year contract. Who wouldn't? Mets are lucky the Phillies are playing badly, but the Braves have gotten off to a great start. But I was not impressed with the Mets' everyday lineup. I thought their offense was suspect. I thought their defense on the right side of the infield, forget about it. Their defense on the left side of the infield, with Bichette playing out of position at third base, forget about it. So they've got issues. And then the starting pitching. I was never impressed with the starting pitching after Peralta. And for that matter, the bullpen was suspect. They took the setup man and the closer from the New York Yankees, who were not doing the job with the Yankees. Why do you think the Yankees let them go? There was a reason the Yankees let them go. They weren't doing the job for New York. My point is, I'm a bit shocked that the Mets are on an 11-game losing streak as of this recording. And as I said, by the time you watch it, they might have snapped it against the Minnesota Twins. But I didn't expect them to get off to that bad of a start. Who did? But I didn't expect the Mets to be a good team. I was not. The Mets, at this stage, if they were a couple or 3 games under 500, I would not have been surprised. The Mets are the type of team that are maybe a 1 or 2 game above 500 ball club, at best, with Soto in the lineup. Now, without Soto in the lineup, you're seeing the results. So they can fire the manager, and of course, Stearns has given Mendoza the kiss of death, saying it's not his fault. We're for Carlos, and he shouldn't have to worry. You can do all of that, but at some point, somebody's going to have to take the fall, and it's going to be the manager. The manager will end up taking the fall. That's the way it usually is. But beyond that, let us take a look at the fact this is not a good ball club, and that's not on Mendoza. That's on David Stearns. And how long the owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, decides to stick with David Stearns is going to be interesting, because if the Mets continue to play this way, something's going to happen beyond the manager losing his job. So, am I surprised the Mets are 11 games under 500 and I don't know, what are they, 7-15? That's what? 8 games under 500. Am I surprised the Mets are 8 games under 500? A little bit. Am I surprised they're on an 11-game losing streak? Yeah, a little bit. But remember, they don't have Soto. But am I that surprised? Not at all. I thought the Mets were about a 500 ball club, couple games over, couple games under. As I said, right now they're 7-15. More and more they're taking on the overtones of the 1966 New York Yankees. We'll save that for another day. But I'm not all that surprised. As I said, I didn't pick the Mets to make the playoffs. I didn't pick the Red Sox to make the playoffs, 2 teams that a lot of people think will make the postseason. I know there's a long way to go, but it's 7-15 and the second worst record in baseball. The Mets have a big hole to dig out of, and I just don't think they have the personnel to dig out of that hole. So they play the Minnesota Twins. They're back at home. Twins are playing real good baseball. We shall see what unfolds, but this is not the manager's fault. This goes much higher than the manager. Bottom line is, at best, the Mets are a mediocre ball club, and mediocre gets you to about 500. And even with a watered-down playoff system, tough to make baseball's postseason with just a 500 record. That's going to do it for Dan on Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you very much for subscribing to my newsletter. And if you haven't, all you need to do is go to danonsports.com. See you later.